Happy holidays. Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a happy holiday.
Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. So I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. Last night, I sat and listened with great care for 20 minutes to the President of the United States delivering a primetime address to the American people. Now, I didn't hear anything that was really new, except that members of the military will receive $1,776 as a bonus, as a thank you, as we celebrate, 1776. But was there anything really new in what the president said? No, he blamed Joe Biden. Joe Biden has become the whipping boy. Any problems, any issues, well, it's all Biden's fault. But the simple reality is when you've been in office for almost a year, as Donald Trump has been, it means that you truly are the one who has to be blamed and applauded for what happens. I say this respectfully, but I learned nothing really new. And of course, what I really missed was the fact that the president rushed through his speech. There were no ad libs. It was very tightly controlled. But I missed his, shall we say, the joy of his comments, unscripted. So having dealt with that with nothing really new, let me deal with another question. Brandon Carr, the chair of the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, made a statement to Congress that intrigued me. He said the FCC is not formally independent. In other words, what the chair of the FCC is saying is, we do the bidding of the president. And that's not what the FCC was established to do. The FCC was established to provide leadership in terms of communications in this country, not to be a toady, and I use that term advisedly, to any particular administration. We now know that the most important single thing for Donald Trump is control. And the FCC and its attitudes and concerns become paramount. Jack Smith, the independent counsel who Donald Trump has continually ridiculed, made fun of, he has now concluded, and he reported to Congress, that in a testimony, by the way, not in a formal report, that his investigation of the 2020 election demonstrated to him that Donald Trump did try to subvert an American election. No surprise, read the January 6th Commission report and you see it all very, very clearly. But what was remarkable is that it didn't get headlines, because indeed what Donald Trump did was to try to subvert American democracy. This is something which should not be forgotten. And although Jack Smith's report seems to have vanished in terms of any formal action, his conclusions should be read, studied, and understood. And now, one of the most critical questions coming up on us, and that is healthcare. The House voted 216 to 211. The Republicans controlling the majority. There will be no Affordable Care Tax Credit. That's clear. Obamacare now is essentially dead because people can't afford what is happening. I say this sadly because I believe with all my heart that Obamacare was the start of a revision in terms of what we are trying to do in terms of healthcare. These subsidies will lapse at the end of the year, and healthcare costs are going to skyrocket. I waited patiently last night for the president to address this major decision by the Republicans, not to make sure that healthcare subsidies do not lapse. I didn't hear anything. Did you? Oh, and I've got to make a comment. All of you know how much I enjoy the presidency and discussing the presidency. Did you see the plaques under the president's pictures at the White House? Oh, yes. Donald Trump designed them himself. They designed them at the White House, created the plaques. They are now under the president's pictures. And let me tell you something, it's shameful. So I'm going to make a prediction that I know will come true. The next president of the United States will take those plaques and remove them. Because really, what the president of the United States has done is to degrade the office of the presidency. And frankly, that walk of presidents ought to be just the pictures of the presidents without editorial comment by anyone. History will judge the presidents and whether they were good, bad, or indifferent. And of course, that's why we have presidential historians. I must say a word about Vladimir Putin and Ukraine. Do you understand that yesterday, President Putin made a comment, and that is that Russia will continue all of its efforts. It will not surrender. It will not give in. It will try to seize more territory. And although the president is convening a discussion that will take place this weekend about Ukraine, it appears to me quite clear that no progress will be made. In the meantime, what we are witnessing is a tragedy for Ukraine, for the Europeans, and frankly for humanity. Appeasement never works. And one of the things that we have learned in Ukraine is Vladimir Putin is going to continue his offensive. And we had a major breaking story yesterday in terms of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. Don Bongino, who has been the FBI's deputy director, is leaving in January. I'm not surprised in a way because Bongino has been clashing with the director of the FBI, Kash Patel. But more than that, Bongino is a conspiracy theorist. Remember, Don Bongino and I have something in common. We were both talk show hosts, and I used to listen to him with great care just to hear his absurd comments, his absurd mythologies, and yes, all those conspiracy theories. The president, in announcing his departure, said he wants to go back to radio. He wants to go back to his talk show. Well, good luck, because what we now have is a situation where normally the deputy director of the FBI is the chief administrator of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and generally is somebody on the inside. Well, we didn't have that in the first year of the Trump administration, and heaven only knows what we can look forward to in the days ahead. The clash that exists today over the FBI and its efficiency is one which we should all be concerned about, particularly those of us who watched the FBI with Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., and those of us who remember Jimmy Stewart in the FBI story. The FBI of those days, well, it's no longer the FBI that we once knew. And there is another major breaking story, because at some point in the next few hours, the Epstein files are going to be released. And let's be clear, Donald Trump wanted those files buried. And if you listened to the White House Chief of Staff and her comments, she admits that Donald Trump is the subject of some of these files, but she said there's nothing he really did that was so terrible. Well, we're going to make that judgment if we see the files. I listened carefully to the survivors of Epstein's atrocities, and their comments were clear and precise. They don't really trust what is going to be released. And can you blame them? It would appear that what we are going to get are sanitized FBI files. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I can come on the air with you in the next few days and say I was wrong. But frankly, I don't think so. I think we've got a major, major problem. What does it mean when files are released, but they're sanitized? Do you understand? This is a major concern, and the Epstein file story is far from over. But there was yet another story that intrigued me and that I think deserves recognition. The American Academy of Pediatrics is losing federal grants. Why? Because there were challenges by the American Academy of Pediatrics to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That's right. The Secretary of Health and Human Services has decided to take a page out of Donald Trump's playbook. And that playbook is retribution, revenge. I don't think that what is happening now at the Department of Health and Human Services is a good thing. And I certainly don't believe that the American Academy of Pediatrics should be reduced to, well, evidently, where they're going. They are now viewed as the enemy by RFK Jr., and the impact on America's health may be felt profoundly. You know, when one reflects on the fact that we now have almost 1 year of Donald Trump and his administration, and we can see what is happening, well, one should be deeply concerned. And I want to say a word about ICE. I want to say this because there are more and more roundups taking place. Roundups of people who probably have committed no crime at all. In fact, that seems to be the trend in what is happening. But I say this because where I live in San Francisco, there were major protests against what ICE is doing by religious leaders who raise a serious question. And I want to answer a question very directly. Do I believe ICE should be abolished? The answer is no. The answer is that what you need is an administration that does not use a federal agency for its own political purposes. The roundups taking place in cities across America really disturb me profoundly because, and I want you to listen carefully to this, it is a misuse of a federal agency with a political purpose. There is one more issue that I want to address. Many of you offer me comments when I make mistakes, and believe me, I make mistakes. It is Bondi Beach. I mispronounced it, and one of our loyal listeners, and you know who you are, immediately corrected me, and so I'm happy to have the correction made. When I watched yesterday the beginning of the funerals at Bondi Beach, those who were killed in an act of Jew hatred, 15 people dead, from a child, Matilda, and I thought immediately in Australia, waltzing Matilda, oh my gosh. When you hear about a 10-year-old child being killed, also a Holocaust survivor being killed in an act of Jew hatred, I will confess to you that I wept, and I will continue to weep as the funerals continue. This is the ultimate tragedy. As we approach tonight, the 5th night of Hanukkah, we remember that the purpose of Hanukkah is to bring light to the world, a struggle for freedom. What we witnessed at Bondi Beach in Australia, and what we have seen in Australia in general, and I regret to say across the world in particular, a rise of Jew hatred. I received an email from a listener who said, "Why do you not simply call it anti-Semitism?" Because anti-Semitism is too benign a term. What we are dealing with is hatred of Jews, manifesting itself in the kinds of actions that we saw in Australia. What is reassuring to me, and I want all of you to be aware, is that where there are public lightings of the Hanukkah, of the Hanukkah menorah, what has been happening is that non-Jews have been coming to these celebrations. They've come to show solidarity with the Jewish community. They've come to show defiance of Jew hatred. They have come to express their outrage against hate. That, my friends, is an important lesson for all of us. And so as we kindle the Hanukkah lights, and as we prepare in just a week to celebrate Christmas, we must all reflect on the true meaning of these holidays and the tragedy of what has been inflicted upon Australia, upon the Jewish community, and indeed upon the world. These are my thoughts for today, and of course I will be back tomorrow with much more, because the news never stops, does it? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. You can write me a review on Apple Podcasts, drop a comment on YouTube or Spotify, and click any of the links in the show notes to connect with me on social media. Remember to share this episode, all our episodes, with friends and colleagues so we can continue to grow and, well, frankly, reach out, develop a greater strength and depth. And to all of you, I want to express my deep appreciation. This show, as you know, has been getting so much positive attention that we are excited about our advertisers. This move will help us to create more opportunities for Around the Political World with John Rothman. And for that, we are grateful. If you want to advertise with us, just let us know. And a special word of thanks to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this podcast, who makes it happen every single day. Thanks, Gogo. And to all of you, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.
Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a happy holiday. If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.